we're a community. We're a group of people coming together. This is a gathering of human beings. And what we're doing right now, we've started a series called Stories. And the reason we're doing this is because there are people that come to this church frequently that you see, and you know who they are. Like, that's the lady with 2 kids that sits on the right side of the church. Or, that's the guy that sits in the back row every Sunday and leaves a little early. Like, we know, or like, that's the woman who has like crazy good fashion, right? Like, we know people by that. We may not know their name. We may not know what they do or who they are. And it's easy. Are you guys trying to figure out who the woman with good fashion is? Yeah. You're about to meet her. So we've done this thing where we want you to get to know each other. And sometimes knowing the arsenal can feel like, well, who is Chad? And what does Chad do? And what does Chad believe? And and I hate that. I don't want this to be me. This is a community of people. And so in this Stories series, we're bringing people up and ask people to share their story, tell you who they are, where they come from, maybe their faith journey a little bit, why they've stayed at the Arsenal, what this community has meant, all of these things. And so they get to talk about that. Or the other prompt I gave was like, if you don't want to talk about your story, you can just talk about like a characteristic of God that has maybe changed for you over the years, the way that you look at God and the way you experience that. So far, everyone has picked to tell their story, so I think it's awesome. So you get to hear from people in this community to learn who they are. And I said last week that nobody in this room is an it. And what I mean by that is about 100 years ago, there's a Jewish philosopher. His name's Martin Buber. And he wrote a little book, and I know that I got told last week that people were like laughing about that's his name. Just my 12-year-old or my 11-year-old kid was laughing. 100 years ago, this guy Martin Buber needs some water. He talked about a theory. He wrote this little book. In English, is translated "I and Thou." And Buber said that there's really only 2 ways to meet anything in life: a person, a tree, God, this table, anything. You meet that thing in 2 different ways. You can meet it as an it, something you use, something you categorize, something you file in your mental filing cabinet. Or you can meet it as a thou, a presence, someone you actually like encounter and understand, begin to see them. Someone who's fully there and you're fully there, and for a second, nothing is being used for anything. It's a relationship. It's a thou moment. Buber's definition of thou goes like this. The I-thou moment is what he calls it. 2 ways of meeting. I-it, you're meeting a person as an object, filed, useful, or I-thou moment, a person as presence, actually encountering them. And most of us live in the I-it mode all the time. It's normal. It's the barista that serves you coffee every day. It's the other drivers on the road that you are super polite to all the time. It's the guy who runs sound. It's not evil. This is just our autopilot, how our minds work. But Buber believed, and I'll paraphrase here, that every time you truly meet another person as a thou, you brush up against the eternal thou. And that face across from you is one of the places God most reliably shows up. And I think that a lot of times we have potentially turned this Christian life and the faith process into an I-it thing. God is an it in our minds of how we operate. The Christian faith is an it. It is we heard it this morning. It is, you say a prayer, transaction done, you go to heaven. and it misses the thou. It misses the relationship. It misses the eternal thou because you don't get to experience and encounter the presence of a person who is the image of God, who is embodying the Spirit of God, and who is the most unique expression of God that they can be, because nobody else can be that expression. And so when we think about this idea that there are 8 billion expressions of who God is in this world, then every single day we get the moment to have an I thou moment, to brush up against the eternal thou more. And I believe that as we've taught through this last year on the experience of awe, it's not a coincidence that Dacher Keltner, the psychologist that studied this emotion of awe, that he came to the finding that out of the 8 things that he says that we find awe in, one of those main things is moral kindness, is seeing another human being be kind to another human being. You've seen it. I cry on Instagram every day about people that I don't know. I'm like, why am I crying? This is so sweet. Look what they did to this kid. There was a kid last night. Maddie and I were supposed to go to bed early. We're doom scrolling. Or I was. She was just watching my feed. And I came across this kid who was making bird sounds. Have you seen this guy? Yes. What the heck? Like he's like, this is a gray horned owl, and then he does it, and you're like, is this AI? Like, but it was just so, I don't know why I got teary. I'm like, why am I teary? This dude's making bird sounds. But it was just, I don't know, just humans are incredible. And you get to experience them. And when you cut yourself off from the thou, then you cut yourself off from a version and a piece of the eternal thou. So, we're going to meet, and I invite you into a moment of the I thou, where you get to meet the eternal thou through another expression. And so we did that last week. Mark did an incredible job. And this week, I mentioned she might be someone that you've seen here that you're like, man, that woman's got some fashion. Like, she dresses, like, she comes in, she's always like, she's fitted. Like, she is in just this dope outfit. And I feel like a youth pastor right now. Calm down with that language. I even knew that she was going to talk today, so I wore my baggy pants. But it's been incredible getting to know her, and I think you get the opportunity now to hear her story, and it's going to be an incredible moment of that I thou moment. And so I want to invite Alexis up to the stage. Alexis with the good hair. That's what we call Alex with the good hair. He's not here this week, but Alex and Alexis with the good hair, that's messed up because I don't have any. Save some for us. Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. You guys, meet Alexis.
Ooh. Man, I just want to take a moment. This is really surreal for me. I've always been, I guess, like, I've been in school and I've done presentations, and I always hated the group presentations, right? And I was always the one that was like, can I just go first? Because I just want to get what I got to talk about over with. And luckily, my group would always, accommodate to me and let me speak first. So today it's kind of hard because I don't have like a co-host. We're not doing like a panel, and I can't kind of like bounce off of someone else's idea. It's strictly all of my own. And at the same time, it makes it so special. And at the same time, it also makes it really difficult and uncomfortable for me. So if you see me kind of take a deep breath, if you see me just kind of pause, just pause with me. I think a lot of the times in our work week, we are so caught up in the not pausing and the not breathing that we forget to kind of just pause and kick back. So Anyway, I was not expecting to say all of that, but here we go. So who am I? Well, Chad introduced me, and thank you for that. That was really beautiful. I wasn't expecting any of those words at all. He mentioned my fashion, and yeah, I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's just Pinterest, guys. Just go to Pinterest and just say, I want to wear a white polo, and it will give you all these ideas. That's the cheat code. Just go to Pinterest, I promise. That's how I found this one. Hello. But so who am I? A little bit about me is, my name's Alexis. If you haven't already met me, I hope to meet you if I haven't already met you already. I'm 28 years old. I will soon be 29, which is crazy. I can't believe I've already lived through like a lot of my 20s. I feel like COVID kind of robbed a little bit of my 20s, if I'm being honest. I still feel like I'm 22, feeling 22. But at the same time, I also feel like I'm technically a Gen Z, right? And at the same time, I so feel like I'm a millennial. My siblings are millennials. I have a lot of friends who are in their 30s and 40s that are also in that millennial category. And then you'd be surprised I have some others as well, more in the older category. But anyway, this story isn't polished and it's not anywhere near perfect. It's not the most exciting. So if you tend to doze off or fall asleep, that's okay. I won't be mad at you for that. Rest, you know. I'm more friends with people, yes, older, of course, I already said that. But so where was I from? Technically, I'm not from San Antonio. I was born in College Station, Texas. Does anyone know where that is? C-Stat, okay, C-Stat in the house. I'm not an Aggie fan, so don't get excited. Can anybody guess what we go for? There we go. Chad is not going to put me back up here because he hates the horns. I don't know why. And they're actually ranked number 6 university. Yeah, it's all right. But I'm from Aggie Land. I've been there since I was about 10 years old. And I moved to Houston a little bit after that and kind of spent another decade there. I mean, guys, I'm not that old, so I don't have a lot of story, but I have some. So I spent a lot of my preteens and a lot of my teenage years in Houston. I graduated there. And then fast forward to 2018, I moved to the good old San Antonio, home of the bean and cheese tacos, which was a new thing for me. It was a big culture shock. Like some of y'all grown up eating that since y'all were like 2 years old, not me. I got to come to good old San Antonio, the culture here, the people, the music, and of course my personal favorite, the San Antonio Spurs. Come on, somebody. San Antonio Spurs. And since I've been in this city, I've done nothing but fall in love with it. Fallen in love with the people and the culture. I've fallen in love, I think, with the unity San Antonio has compared to a lot of other cities. You come from a big city like me, like Houston, and there wasn't that much unity with the Rockets, if I'm being honest. There wasn't that much unity with the Texans. We weren't that great either, so it doesn't help. Being a Cowboys fan, it also doesn't help. And yeah, something with San Antonio, it's just so special. And I hope that whether you're from here, that you take pride in being from San Antonio, not just dogging on the city. There's so many people that just pull the city down, and I have so many questions as to why. And maybe that's for their own personal reason, but, okay. So, being here in San Antonio, I spent a lot of my time here. I'm a recent graduate from Texas A&M San Antonio. Go Jaguars. Chad is a student there. He's almost done. I've seen him a little bit on campus, which is kind of cool. You see your pastor at the same campus as you. And then on top of that, you're studying the same degree. I also am a psych major, and I minored in sociology, which is something he's really familiar with as well. And then I always get the question, why psych? Why psychology? Why not business? Why not finance? Why not something that you could just make a lot of money in? Alex says, why don't you just go into modeling? And I'm like, no, it's just not my thing. Looks don't last, knowledge does. But besides the story, I graduated in psych, and honestly, it wasn't my first choice. As a kid, it's funny, I remember telling my mom I wanted to be a pediatrician, which is, as a kid, who wants to be a pediatrician? And I don't know, I think I just like the idea of just caring for people and kids and just wanting to help them in their journey. And then I obviously realized, I was like, okay, maybe pediatrician in med school, not for your girl. So then I was like, okay, well, let's go to the next best thing, right? Which is like, go to be a nurse. So I tried to, or actually did everything to become a nurse, and I was about to actually take my test to hopefully get into nursing school. And then there was like a little pause in my mid-20s, and something shifted for me, and it was something in the sense of I had a family member who was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And if you don't know what schizophrenia is, it's a chronic brain disorder that alters how someone interprets their reality. So it literally shifts everything in their everyday living. And it's so easy to say those words, but when you see someone you love so deeply change everything overnight, and it explains why they act the way they do or talk the way they do and just kind of move through reality, it makes it really difficult. And schizophrenia makes it really difficult to differentiate what's real and what's imagined. And unfortunately, there is no cure, if you didn't know that. It's just a way to manage it. And it's just like a lot of medication, just you can still live a good life. It's just manageable, but sometimes it's hard to even do that and accept that reality. So that's when I knew I wanted to study psych. I wanted to know what the schizophrenia was, and then I got into mental health disorders, and I got into mental health, and I was like, what is this mental health? Because growing up Hispanic, we didn't believe in mental health, or we never talked about it, and it's just not, it wasn't a thing. It was only physical, if we could only see it, or it could be diagnosed within the body, which is so funny because psych is also in the body. Non-existent. And no one's to blame for that. I don't blame my family for that. They just didn't know. You didn't know better, and that's okay. So now that you know a little bit more about me, so clearly graduating with a degree with a field in psych, with science, even though some may disagree, it's a soft science, or it's not physics, and it's not medicine or anything of that nature. So you're wondering kind of like, how did I kind of get here on this stage, right? So how did I become through a faith journey? Did I believe in anything prior to this? And the answer was, I didn't really know. I didn't grow up in church, believe it or not. It wasn't until 2021 that I really jump-started my journey with believing in God and just knowing who Jesus is. So growing up within my childhood years, excuse me, my family didn't go to church. Honestly, a lot of my family, and maybe a lot of yours, we were very dysfunctional, very chaotic, maybe had some bad habits more than others. And my mom has 5 kids, right? 5 of us. Can you just picture that for a second? And 5 of us, 5 kids, 1 household, right? Didn't really come from a lot of family. Excuse me. Giving me ojo up here. So we didn't come from a lot of money financially. My mom had to work multiple jobs just to keep ends meet, to take care of all of us. And I love that woman so much. She's not here today, but she's here. Oh my God, physically she's here. Oh my God, sorry. No, she is here. Oh my gosh. Guys, she's just not in the room, okay? Jeez Louise. She's coming back from Dallas. She had fun, and I'll see her sometime this week, God forbid. But so we didn't grow up with a lot of like the financial things. We probably all had to share like 1 restroom, maybe 2 to 3 bedrooms at the most. But being with 5 kids all together, I was the baby. So I came later. My mom had the 2 boys, and they're 2 years apart. And then my mom had the 2 girls, and they're also 2 years apart. And so they kind of got to have each other pretty much growing up. And then I call what my mom calls it, I was the blessing, right? The blessing, right? The oopsie, really what it was. But every time I say oopsie, she like gets mad. And she's like, no, you were a blessing. I'm like, all right. But so I was the baby. I came 8 years later, and growing up in the 2000s, looking back, it's so cool to see that like my brothers had someone to like kind of grow up and partner with, and then my sisters, they had each other to kind of grow up with and like go through that time. And then there was just kind of like me, you know, I didn't really have a buddy, I guess, to grow with, and that kind of led me to be like just, I felt like an only child, but I wasn't an only child kind of thing. So I didn't necessarily have a buddy, but I had my room, right? And I had my bedroom, and I had my little Disney Princess TV. Do y'all remember those? It has like little VHS in it. Yeah. So I told you I can keep up with the conversation, millennials. So we had that little TV, and I had my bed, and I had my toys or my space. I love to color. And I just had my overall, like my just little comfort, like my space. So I think another part of me, bless you. I think another part of me looking back at little Alexis, that she honestly liked her peace. Something about closing the door to the bedroom felt safe and calmer than the chaos that was coming in and coming out of the home. After a lot of thought and therapy sessions, it became clear to me as what I call myself a bedroom kid. So within this scenario specifically, I like to describe kids in two categories. Not because it's scientific, but because this explains an example of my experience. This could be different for you, but this is just for me today. But there are living room kids and there are bedroom kids. Okay, great. Thank you, guys. So living room kids feel more comfortable in the heart of their home. They can relax, they can color, they can play games, they can jump around and simply exist out in the open. And it's so funny, I was thinking about this when I got here earlier to church, is that one time the Blues, they invited me and my partner to their house, and we were just chilling in the living room, hanging out, conversating, and here comes little Yara. And she's running through the house, and she's jumping, and she's playing, and you know she's in gymnastics, so she's doing cartwheels, she's doing splits, and she's backflipping, and I'm in awe of this child because she's just being herself. You know, she doesn't have to feel like she has to be someone else in her own home. And so that's what I see as like a living room kid for me. But I became the bedroom kid. And my bedroom was the safest place in my home. It was quiet and it was predictable, it was peaceful and it was safe. So I stayed there and I hid from the commotion of the rest of the house around me. But little did I know that I would get so comfortable in my bedroom hiding that I would take on the identity of hiding. So what did becoming a bedroom kid do for me? So today's talk, I'm going to be specifically talking about hiding, masking, pretending, looking perfect, having the things of all that nature. It's something that I know none of y'all do. It's okay. So my talk today is titled, "You're Safe Enough to Stop Hiding." Hiding in my bedroom as a child felt like I was just avoiding conflict, but over time I realized it really truly became my identity. I learned that if I stayed quiet, if I didn't need much, if I didn't cause problems, if I didn't ask questions, life just automatically felt safer. Being the unproblematic child became something I was proud of. Being the bedroom kid created in me the peacemaker and created in me being invisible. And it turned me into someone who was skillfully learning to being polished and perfect instead of just being vulnerable and authentic. So as I got into my teenage years, into my early adulthood, I figured out what I was pretty much good at. So fast forward, being the bedroom kid, going into middle school, high school, whatever you want to blend in there, I got the good grades. I finally got to play sports in middle school. So when I got the okay, I did it all, believe it or not. I got to high school, I danced all 4 years, and I made captain my senior year. Of course, I had to push myself to be, a little bit more. And from the outside looking in, everything looked like it was going exactly how it should. Like Alexis is the good one. Don't gotta worry about that girl. FYI, if you have a child, or if you are, let me just say, if you have a child who's the unproblematic child, my therapist likes to say you need to check on that child the most and let them know that they can drop it all and just be themselves if that's the case. But anyway, as a child or teenager, I loved hearing my mom say things like, "I never have to worry about you. You're so mature. You're such a good kid. You give me no issues. You have such a good head on your shoulders." And while those words were genuine from her and they meant everything to me, her approval, over time, I realized I wasn't just trying to do the right thing. I was trying to become someone who also never disappointed anyone. So without realizing it, I started building an identity around always having it together. I felt like I had to present the best version of myself all the time. The more people complimented me for being the good kid, the harder it became to let anyone see me when I wasn't okay, or when I was just tired and overall just burnt out. So by the time I got to my early 20s, I had spent years trying to do everything the right way. But even though I may have looked like I was put together, I still felt like something was missing. Something wasn't quite there. I was still looking for something to just kind of fulfill, like I guess a void that I had created for myself. So I started looking for that feeling in other places. I was going out with friends all the time, spending a lot more time in the nightlife scene. Not proud of that. Drinking more than I had ever had. Chasing the bottom of a bottle or a glass that made me feel accepted in the moment. I think looking back, the people I was surrounded with at that time, we were all looking for the same approval in some sort of fashion. But for me personally, I think I got so fed up with the pretending and the hiding that I just finally wanted to take the mask off and be seen. I was searching, wanted belonging, and at the same time I wanted approval, but at the same time I also wanted purpose, and I was just constantly looking for things deep down that I knew really couldn't satisfy me. So then you're asking, okay, well, what'd you do? What changed, right? And oh my God, this is so cliche, I know, but I got invited to church, and I got invited to church for the first time, guys, and you have to think about that because I've never really grown up in church. I maybe once or twice went to like VBS, Vacation Bible School, really. But yeah, I didn't grow up in church. I wasn't, an altar server. I wasn't there serving. I wasn't with the other kids. I wasn't learning scripture. I wasn't learning theology. I wasn't seeing my parents really pray. I wasn't listening to worship music. I wasn't doing the things. And looking back now, even though despite any of that, because whether you have that background or you don't, that doesn't matter in the eyes of God, but I realized like God wasn't just leading me to one destination or just to one church that I got invited to, but God was walking me through just different seasons. So American Franciscan priest, author, and spiritual teacher that we all know and love, Richard Rohr, he shares his paradigm for the transformative process of spiritual maturity being 3 different stages consisting of, we have order, and then we have the disorder, and then we have the reorder. He says, and quotes, "Order is the first stage. If we are granted it, and not all of us are, we feel innocent and we feel safe. Everything is pretty much good. Those who try to stay in the first satisfying explanation of how things should be tend to refuse and avoid any confusion, conflict, inconsistencies, or even suffering. Disorder or change is always to be avoided, the ego believes. So let's just hunker down and pretend that my status quo is entirely good, should be good for everybody, and is always true." Looking back at my first church experience, that was my first season of order. That's where I started cleaning up. You start cleaning up the little parts of yourself. You don't go do Sunday fun day as much anymore. You start praying a little bit more. You start reading a little bit more scripture. You start figuring out ways to try to manage your sin, or another way, try to hide your sin, right? Because are you really managing it? And that's just the place where I was just like, okay, we have to do this thing, and then we got to do that thing, and then if we continue to do this thing, then God will grant us this thing, and very just, transactional, very just, trying to just do what you think is right because the church says so, authority says so. I started attending more Sunday services. I started getting involved. I even started serving, guys. I started serving with kids. And that's a blast within itself. I love the kiddos in the back. And those of you who have them, they are great. And then I started doing Greet, and I just really remember that experience being within this church, that it was just very raw, but not raw in the good way. Like raw as in like we're just ripping off the Band-Aid, and because we have to do this for God, and you need to turn from your ways because of X, Y, and Z. And it just became really heavy. It became really heavy for the people I invited. Oh my God, I invited people and they would talk about something and I was like, oh God, they're not gonna ever want to come back to church. And we were just in the same boat, and and it just felt so horrible. Like there's no way I can bounce back from that. And so that's like my season of order. And then this is when I transitioned out of the church, that one, and went to another one. So then Richard Rohr goes and talks about what he says is disorder. He quotes, "At some point in our lives, we will be deeply disappointed by what we were originally taught, by where our choices had led us, or by seemingly random tragedies that take place in all of our lives. There will be a death, maybe a disease, a disruption to our normal way of thinking or being in the world. It is necessary if any real growth is to occur. The disorder stage is what we call, from Adam and Eve's story, the fall. Some people try to go back to the original box, the order, and they don't accept reality, which prevents them from further growth. Permanent residence in the disorder stage tends to make people negative and cynical, maybe angry, and quite dogmatic as they search for solid ground." So, transitioned out of the first church, which is what I call my order church, moving into disorder. And the second church, I was like, oh, okay, cool. They talk about sin, right? But it's like more on the back burner. So it's like doesn't scare everyone away, but like at the same time, they're really talking about it, right? So they had sincere people. I met a lot of good people who I still kind of keep in contact with today, and they love Jesus and they have such good intentions. So I just want to say first that I don't think they were trying to create a culture of performance or being polished, but for me, it just felt like everyone just had it together. Like, if you think I'm on stage right now wearing what I'm wearing and I'm talking to you guys and like I have it together, just imagine a whole room filled with people that just like this, right? You don't want to come in your hoodie and your leggings and you feel out of place. Like, but just imagine that for a second, just a whole room of people who just look like me. You know what I mean? And it just felt like everyone had it together. And, you would ask them, oh, how are you? Like, how was your week? How's it going? Kind of how we do here. But there was never a wrong answer. It was always, oh, I'm good. The kids are good. Oh, my husband just did this. And the business is booming. And, we're fine. And his mom's fine. And, oh, we're believing for this because God's going to do this. And we're just fine, right? We're just fine. Just fine. How you doing? Fine. And, they were just serving more, trying to do things, and more of a pleasement for God than just being in the presence of God. And the message was always, come as you are, because none of us are perfect. But when I looked around, everyone just happened to seem perfect. So whether that was a reality or just simply my perception, it reinforced something that had been inside of me since I was a little girl. I had spent my whole life learning to be the good kid and the unproblematic kid, the one who had it together. So I thought, oh man, okay, so this is what Christianity must look like too. I read a book a couple months ago from John Lynch, his book, The Cure, and Chad has talked about this book, and little did I come to know that he's really close with this family, which is really cool. But me and my partner, we have read this book, and in the book, it talks about him approaching a fork in the road, and there being a huge pole, and there has two signs. There's the pleasing God path that you can go on, and you can walk this road and do everything you can to please God. And then there's the trusting God. I can't get into all the details of this book, but if you can read it, please do. It's so freeing. But as the book continues, it mentions that the pleasing God path leads to this room, and it leads to the room of good intentions. It's a room where people are sincerely trying to please God with their works, manage their sin, and the goal is just to become overall better Christians, right? To become more and better Christ-like. It's not a room that you can take off the mask, but it's really a room where you just keep it on. And if you haven't had a mask walking in, they give you one. Often we wear masks because we're afraid that if people knew the real us, we'd be loved less. Walking into the room of good intentions, I realized I hadn't stopped wearing a mask. I just traded one for the other. So then I found Arsenal, which is what I call my reorder stage. Richard Rohr says this about reorder. Only in the final reorder stage can darkness and light coexist. Can paradox be okay? We are finally at home in the world, in the only world that ever existed. This is true and contemplative knowing. Here, death is a part of life, and failure is a part of victory. Opposites collide, and they unite, and everything belongs. At the reorder stage, we come to the true inner authority, where I know something, and the only nature of knowing is that it's okay because God is in every moment, no matter what happens. So it's taking the tension from not knowing and knowing and partnering together. Nothing needs to be excluded. I can live and work with all of it because apparently God can too. For some unbelievable reason, contrary to logic and common sense, everything does belong. It's so funny how God works, not just for me, but for every person in this room. God is so intentional to all the bits and pieces of our lives. And truly, when I hear stories of just people in this room, and it blows my mind, you know. This story always makes me laugh because I'm going to say, like, my first story come to Arsenal, right? Okay. Follow with me. So coming from my previous church, right? It's very organized and organization. Oh God, guys. That's not what I meant. Okay, hold on. Guys, I am putting my foot in my mouth. No, this is not, okay, I didn't mean organized, like, it wasn't organized, right? But I meant like we run it like an organization, right? Let's think business. Like we're running it like a business show. We have to perform this many, people coming in and they have to give this much. And, worship has to be 3 songs and it has to be this prayer and it has to be only 2 minutes that you can, XYZ, talk to your neighbor, say high five 5 people, whatever, all that, right? So anyway, first coming to Arsenal, and I got invited from my partner. She's in healthcare. One of her patients actually invited her to Arsenal, which is why I say God is just so intentional in everything, in every conversation, being a thou to someone else in a clinic room, just inviting, right? So we come, and she's like, "Well, you want to go check out this church?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, like I'm open to it. Like let's go. Well, I mean, what do we got to lose, right?" So we go check it out, and she's like, "Okay, well, it starts at 11, so we got to get there a little early." And I was like, "Okay, like yeah, let's do it. I don't want to be, I don't want to be late. God forbid I'm late, and then I'm ticked off because I'm late when I made myself late." And I was like, "You know what? No." So she's like, "All right, let's get there like 10:45, right? So we can find parking, right? Find parking. We can get our seat before anybody gets their seat, right?" And we did the thing. So we got here, and I remember I came with her and my mom, and mom joined along. And we got here, and no greeter at the door, and I had to open my own door, guys. I had to open my own door, and tough, very tough. But anyway, we got in, and there was 2 people in here. It was Mark and Maudie. And they were in the back, and they were just, on this table, just chalking and having coffee and chisme or whatever. And they're like, "Oh, okay." Like Mark, of course, he's like, "Oh, are you new?" Clearly. And we're like, "Oh, yeah," And he's like, "Oh, okay, no worries. Well, coffee's here, and the restroom's there if you need it, and we'll get started at like 11-ish. And I was like, 11-ish. Okay. So I had time to go get coffee, but it's fine. So we're like, okay, nobody's in here, guys. And we come to like a couple rows up, and we get situated, and it's 11:05, and I'm like, oh, they're probably going to do a countdown soon, or, something. No countdown. I'm like, all right, well, okay. So then finally we're going to get worship started, and I'm like, okay, cool. Worship set, great. I think because it was just smaller, I was like, well, what's going to happen? I was very impressed. And I was like, man, they're really good, And no, I guess, should I say, order to Arsenal, right? And just rawness in the way that it felt okay to take away those standards that I had, that church had to be like this and had to be like this and you had to look like this. And it was just so comforting. And so I want to go back for a second to John Lynch's book. The two paths were, like I had mentioned, were pleasing God and trusting God. And the trusting God, I don't know, it just sounded like too easy, like too simple. Like you just gotta trust, and you don't really have all the questions and like the answers. But it's like, I don't know, I guess is the other option, because the pleasing God didn't really work out for me. Everybody kind of looked the same, and it didn't feel right in my soul. It was just very surface level, and it was just like, okay, we're doing this again. And how many souls did we save this weekend? Okay, great. And then you have this path, the trusting God, and it leads to a room which is not the room of good intentions, but the room of grace. And when I came to the Arsenal, that's, I think, truly what I experienced. It's not a place where I had to prove that I was necessarily good enough, but a place where I could actually be honest. The room of grace isn't a place where people pretend they have it all together, but it's just a place where people can admit that they don't. The Arsenal community still pursues holiness, despite maybe what you've heard coming in. Guys, I was not supposed to be funny. Arsenal community still loves Jesus. They're not pretending that they've arrived and they have all the answers to your rough questions. I finally started to be honest with others, but the most loving thing I ever did was I finally started to be honest with myself. I realized I didn't have to earn love by being performative or perfect. I didn't have to keep proving that I was the good kid at 28 years old. For someone who had spent years in hiding behind achievements and titles and perfection, I didn't think grace was something I didn't know I needed. But I think God didn't just bring me to a different church. He brought me into a place where I firmly believed I could be fully known, seen, and loved. So I'm going to wrap it up here, and I'll end by saying this, that I'm not here to convince you to believe exactly as I do, for starters. I'm not here to convince you that you need to stay here at Arsenal. This isn't the point of my story. It's not to bribe you into an invitation to accept Jesus into your heart and you'll be saved and go to heaven. This isn't an insurance ticket to heaven. My story is that I spent most of my life just hiding, and even hiding behind a version of Christianity that I thought meant always just having it together. So what I found here was something different. I found a community that believes honesty is more important than just pretending. A place where I can say I'm struggling, or I have doubts, I don't know, I messed up, I need advice, and I'm just still loved. Sometimes that's really uncomfortable to do that, to ask people for help. I'm the pro at not asking people for help. I will do everything in my heart to wear myself out before I ask you for help. I'm working on it. But I've learned that comfort is so overrated. Growth almost always begins on the other side of discomfort. I hope when you walked in today that you felt that there's a love in this room that maybe you haven't ever experienced before, or maybe you haven't experienced it in a really long time. Not because the people here are perfect, but because they're willing to admit that they're not. So whether you're all in on this faith journey, whether you are full of question, whether you deconstruct it, or whether you don't believe at all, because I know someone in this room who has deconstructed so much that they don't even know what they believe anymore, and that's okay. I just want you to know, and I want you to take this with you as you go out today, is you're safe here. I think during worship I had to touch my heart and genuinely just say I'm safe here. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to pretend. You can take the mask off. You can ask hard questions. You can be honest. You can be you. And I think that's what the Arsenal has become for me. So I just want to say thank you for allowing me to share my story today. I hope it brings you comfort and hope and joy, that no matter where you are, in your faith, like it's okay to be just here and just be with us, and we'll love you just where you're at. And I love you guys so much. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
There's an intention behind our disorganization. Yeah. Man, I think, so Alexis and I sat down Friday to talk. And I kind of heard her story growing up. I didn't know what she was going to talk about today until this morning when she said, hey, I emailed you my slides. I was like, oh, okay, let me look. And The Cure was in there, John Lynch's book. And John was such a pivotal person in the transition for me and understanding who I am in Christ. And that book was life-changing. And John would say that when you wear a mask, you go into the world and you do these accomplishments and you're perfect, and that mask gets, that version of you gets loved. When you go home, you take the mask off, the only thing that got loved that day was your mask. And you are still not accepted, belong, or loved. So as Alexis is talking, it says that she came in here, she felt safe. Yeah, just tears in my eyes. That's what we want. That is the intention. We don't have greeters at the door on purpose. I remember in a staff meeting years ago being like, where else do you go as an adult that another adult greets you other than Walmart? That's like, hey, welcome, come on, you can sit with me. It's just weird. Let people come in. The whole back area was supposed to have couches and living room set up and be where you could come in, because I had so many people come in and sit in the back row where you're sitting, John, that back corner spot right there, or the back corner back here, where they could slip out the moment they heard what they'd always heard in church, and the moment they felt not loved. And so I was like, well, just put some couches back there. People can hang out. They don't even have to be in church. We didn't get the couches yet. Working on it. But yeah, this is who we want to be. A place where you feel loved. Where you can walk in here, feel accepted, feel like you belong. You can take the mask off. That your behavior is not what defines you. It's Christ and the love that he has and through you that defines you. Even this morning, standing outside, talking with my buddy Henry. My heart hurts for him. And at one point, he's like, well, the Bible says you can't do this, and this is wrong, and you're teaching lies and sending people to hell, and they're not saved. You're not saved. Okay. I said, well, how do you know if someone's got Jesus? They said, well, their righteousness, their holiness, their blah. I said, no. There's a word in Scripture that says how you can figure out if someone has Jesus. And he's like, what? Fruit? That's the word. You judge them by their fruit. And I said, and what is that fruit? Can you quote me Galatians 5? That what is the fruit? He goes, well, I was like, man, you can't even quote that. Duncan sent me a reel this week with this girl on TikTok or Twitch streaming. I forget. Her name was Atheist something. And some guy was on there talking about like, oh, this is a sin, and this Bible says you can't do this and you can't do that. And she's like, all right, tell me the scripture where like it says how to get saved. And the guy just kind of froze. Like, what about the one that tells you like about you're loved by Jesus? Or tell me the one that I forget what, like basically this, like, all right, quote the fruit to me. And she's like, so you can quote all the bad ones and what you can't do, but you can't even quote how you're loved? And I told Henry, I said, man, you can't even, how do you know if any of us are in Christ if you don't even know what the fruit looks like or what the fruit is? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, long-suffering. Like, you don't even know what it is. So you have no idea if any of these people are doing that. But if you'd like to come in and experience some love, some joy, some peace, some kindness, I bet you'll find it. Because that's the fruit. And I think this is a place where I get to experience it myself. And hearing stories where other people experience it, we're okay. We're right where we're supposed to be. He said, if you teach the truth, you're not going to be popular, or you're not going to, have a ton of people. And I said, you haven't walked in the church yet. I'm not very popular. We don't have a lot of people. Welcome to the truth. I love this place. Love this community. These people. Hearing the stories just warms my heart, motivates me. I love when people, I talked to Alexis, she's like, I don't know, it's going to be rough. I've done PowerPoint stuff at school, but I are you kidding me? What the heck? She could preach every week. You're loved here. That's the sign used to be on the wall. It's here now. You're loved, period. End of story. She mentioned it, but John Lynch says, and I've tweaked it a little bit. We like to say that we want to be a place where you don't have to hide. You can share the worst of you, and you'll be loved more, not less, in sharing that. And I think that's what real love is. It's just real love moves closer. So the invitation of this whole thing, this story, is to experience that eternal vow, to move closer, to love each other well. Every single week, I close with this, because I think it is what the fruit looks like through us. It's go love well, because it's who you're made to be. So go do that arsenal, go love people, go experience the eternal vow. And we'll see you next week. Love you guys.